Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be making an Valentine's Day page and doing some interactive pages. So this page layout is based on an old Inkie Quill, Adele Toomey page that she did years ago in her art journal. And she did it for the same reason I'm doing it, as I do struggle somewhat with the burlap pages in my Dina Wakley journal. If you've been following my journal for a while, I tend to put tissue paper over the front and back of my burlap pages, which seals the holes in it but retains the texture. So you can put paints on and so on. It's not soaking into the fibre of the fabric, and it makes it really easy to work with. But in this instant, I thought I'd just go with it and use the burlap as is. So I've just gessoed the two pages on either side, which is cotton rag paper. And I didn't really have an idea of what I was doing, so I do what I always do and went in with some collage pages. So these are collage sheets on deli paper that I've hand drawn or stamped over using either permanent ink or a permanent pen. And I love doing sort of the hand drawn ones because it's my own hand on the page. It's a really quick and easy way. If you don't have any collage tissue, you can make your own, so you don't necessarily always have to buy a store-bought brand. You can make your own. So I've just glued everything down using matte gel medium, and you can see particularly on the white paper when you glue it down it goes translucent, so you can only see the marks on the page. The reason I came up with this page, I started doing this page, was because one of the lovely subscribers on my channel said, I don't see red being used much in art journals or in your art journals, and how do you use it? I really like red and I'd like to see some red pages. So I thought, oh well, Valentine's Day is coming up, I'll give it a go, because I really don't use red very often in my journals. I certainly don't make it the focus colour. So I decided to paint my background red and do the ghost technique over the top and rub it away. And the stencil I'm using is one from Wonder Strumpet, which again, a very, very kind subscriber sent to me. It's a very kind gift, so I wanted to give that a go because that had just arrived in the mail. So as my usual go is, if I'm creating, use what you've got around you. So you'll see on this page my paint was still quite wet in the center bit, but on the outside I'm getting a crisper image because the paint had started to dry slightly. And that's with the ghosting technique, you do need to be a little bit aware of that. If your paint is too wet, you're not going to get a nice crisp image. If it's a little bit drier, you will sort of get that nice crisp line. I was personally finding the red a bit overwhelming, which is one of the reasons I did that ghosting technique anyway. I thought if I hit back the red a little bit, it would help, but it really didn't. So I decided to get this stencil out instead, and I changed the colour of red. I'm actually using the fuchsia over the top, which is a slightly more purpley tone. It's one of my favourite colours. It seems a bit pointless, I know, because I've done all that beautiful stenciling in the background, but I was sort of struggling with it. I was doing a lot of the stuff on this page going, I don't know what to do next. So just sort of working through all the problems. So when you're watching this, see all the things I do wrong and then choose from it what you would do on your own page. I think part of the problem was, apart from the colour, because it's not a colour I'm used to, so it was a bit uncomfortable for me. While I love the collage papers usually, just in the background on their own, they're a little bit harsh, so I needed something to knock them back, and the red wasn't doing it. It was kind of amplifying the black. So I decided to go in with some gold texture paste, and I actually really liked when this happened and putting it over. So I've just sort of spread it haphazardly across my page, and I'm just heating it up. Now, gold texture paste, I don't know why, tends to dry a little bit quicker, but it's still worthwhile actually heating over the top just to get a skin on it. It's not completely dry, but it's dry enough that I can put that burlap page on it and it's not going to stick to it or adhere to it. So obviously with most supplies, the longer you leave them to dry naturally, the better. When I was heating this up, I was a bit too gung-ho with it and some of it started to bubble. I like the texture of that, but if you'd left it to dry, you'd get the texture paste the way you want it to. Again, I'm not a very good model to copy because I don't clean my stencils. You probably should if you're using texture paste over them. So if you've got some stencils that have got texture paste on them, I would suggest cleaning it off. So now I'm just going through and cutting out my heart shape. So you can sort of see how it sort of flips between the two pages, and that's the reason why I had this sort of mirror image of stuff going on. Next, what I'm going to do is actually create the heart shape. So I'm using the half that I cut and then tracing around it with a white Stabilo or pencil so that I can sort of see my heart shape. And because I was finding the background really busy, I wanted to paint some of it out, so do that redactive painting. And I chose to do this in white, and I wasn't particularly happy with it. Actually, looking at it now, I kind of wish I'd left one side white and one side black, but you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So I did ghost out some of those bubble shapes, and I really didn't like it, so I've painted them back in again. Just to sort of make everything blend together. And it worked so I could concentrate on what was happening on the inside, but the white was really bugging me. I just couldn't imagine what I was doing with it, so I was having a bit of a hard time with that. I also wanted to get rid of the brown burlap. I didn't think that that sort of fitted with the page very well, so I'm going in with some more of the fuchsia, quite watered down, and painting over my burlap. So you can see the weave as it goes through. I've got some paper there obviously to protect it from not spreading onto the page, and just putting it on both sides. Just be aware that when you paint burlap, particularly if you paint the whole thing, it does actually stiffen it up a bit, so you're not going to have that lovely soft texture that you usually have with it. So it will be a little bit stiff, but the good thing about putting paint on it is that those loose pieces that I've cut out around the edges are less likely to sort of fray away, which, you know, might be an effect that you really love, but in this case it probably would have lost the shape a little bit if stuff had frayed away. So I knew I wanted to have some sort of focal bit on this middle section, so I decided I'd get this love stencil. This is from an Australian company called Flutterfly Designs, but any sort of text stencil would work. And I'm just going in with white, so I've got a little bit of contrast, and stenciling over the page. Now I chose white because I had white in the background at this stage, but it works in the final piece. So you can see that you do need to be careful if you're stenciling over it, because some did come through the other side. Because this stencil is quite varied in the different shapes and sizes of the text on it, it kind of hit it a little bit. You couldn't see too much where the big blobs were. If you were doing something really fine, you may need to just stencil on one side, or just work out how you're going to do it. If you don't have very much paint on your sponge and you're pretty light at how you're putting it on, it shouldn't really matter all that much. It shouldn't really go through. To define my height, I decided to go around with the black Stabilo pen. I'm just going into the next page. I had a little bit of paint left on my board, so I'm just painting that onto the next page, so I've got a bit of a background there to start working on. And again, that was a way for me to think, what am I doing on this page? Am I happy with it? Am I not? So as I was thinking about what I was going to do, I decided I would go into the middle section. And last year we got some photos taken of our family, which I really, really liked. And I don't tend to put photos very often in my art journal, but I decided in this case that I was going to, because I really liked them, and you know, they fitted with the page and what I was planning to do. I decided to mat them on some scrapbook paper that had a gold foil in it, so it was really, really shiny, just to kind of highlight the gold texture paste that I had in the page too. I would have preferred if it was sort of white paper, but it's sort of creamy, but it fitted in sort of with the colours, so it worked out okay. So I've got an area for my photos. I was thinking about having them hanging out over the side, but then I decided that I'd actually keep everything within the heart shape, and I actually cut a little bit off my photo, and I was going to stick that on the other page, so there's enough room for it to flip without catching, but looking at it as a flat spread, you get the full photo effect. To stick everything down, I'm actually using the extra sticky double-sided tape. I find this red liner tape, apart from a nightmare to actually get the covering off because it is that sticky, is one of the best things to stick stuff down if wet glue or gel medium isn't going to do it. if I'd used gel medium this, it would have, or wet glue, it would have seeped through to the other side. So using a dry adhesive was a much better option, and having that really sticky tape really works. So then I went in with some of the Tim Holtz stickers and just put some stickers on the page just to kind of sum up how I was feeling about it all. So, you know, love with all your heart and together is the best place to be. And as I was doing that, I was really sort of playing around thinking, oh, I'm just not happy with that background. So I decided to get the black paint out and paint it black. And once I did that, it really put a focus on the middle pages, which I suppose is what I really wanted in the first place. For the texture paste in the background, which I loved the gold, I was a bit sad to cover up the gold, but I could still see the texture of it. So it was doing its job. You know, texture paste is to put texture on the page. You could still see those diamonds coming through. It was just a different colour over the top. To add the gold back in, I just got out some of my Inkie gold wax and just went around the edge of the page and over the texture paste just to re-highlight it again. Because the texture paste was quite thin, it was a bit hard to get a really sort of clean image of the diamonds, but it sort of caught in the highlights of it, which I quite liked. So now I'm just priming up a pen to write around the edge of my heart, just to sort of frame it and put a little bit of journaling on. And I was really struggling to write on this. Now usually my white pen goes over everything, and I think it was because even though I dried my gesso in the background, I think it was probably still a little bit damp, so it just wasn't writing the way it usually does. It was going fine over the texture paste and so on, it just wasn't quite writing the way I wanted it to. And the other thing was, I think my pen's half dead, so that wasn't helping either. So I didn't quite come up the way I wanted to unfortunately, but I could kind of read it. So I went into Pinterest to find some quotes that sort of summed up how I was feeling about that page. And as I was looking at it, you can sort of see me here thinking about it. I was like, oh, I need to do something else. There was two big areas of black that looked very black. So I wanted to put, again, a little bit more texture into it. So I'm stamping with black over the top, which seems a bit redundant, but the black actually dries with a slightly gloss finish. And I was using the Dina Wakley black gesso, which is very matte. So when you turn it in the light, you actually do get this catch of, there's a pattern in the background, but it's really, really subtle. The other thing that I wanted to do to tie some black back into the hearts was I did some journaling about how I was feeling about my family and these photos and why they're really important to me, and all the, you know, mushy, soppy stuff that you occasionally do. And I just used a food pen to do that. I did choose to just write in the bits that the texture paste wasn't, but you know, you can with the food ball if you want to, right over the texture paste. Finally, just to balance it off, I went back in with some of the Tim Holtz stickers, which just was some that I chose that I don't use very often, but sort of helps sum up the page. So this is what family looks like. I feel so lucky. All you need is love. It's the little things that make life big. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Be in love with your life. Start each day with a grateful heart. So they're sort of all little mantras that, you know, speak to me and my family and how lucky I am to have them all here. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and it's given you some ideas of what to do or how to use a burlap or how to create a page to, I suppose it's a cross between an art journaling page and a scrapbook page. So it keeps everything in balance, and it's a nice way to actually put your family and your life and the things that are important to you into something that you work on day to day. So thank you so much for watching. If you are new to this channel, please have a look at the subscribe button, hit the like and subscribe button, check out some of my other videos, and hopefully you'll find something that you enjoy. Until next time, bye for now.